Um, so today we're covering fitness bands and like how good they are at what they claim they do, like track and fitness. And my plan is to go over like a really comprehensive meta-analysis, which was published, I think, in 2019. And then go through a more recent one, but smaller one. Then track some studies which bands manufacturers conduct with health organizations. No, like one study actually, just like to give a glimpse of how they look like. Yeah, that's what we're going to start with, and then at some point we also like discuss like the core technology beyond the things. So, Fuller et al. Oh, that's the paper. Okay, so it goes reliability and validity of commercially available variables, and it's about the metrics which we seem to actually care about. So that's like steps, calories, and heart rate. And like one maybe like one restriction of this study kind of is that it considers data from 2000 to 2019, so like doesn't cover the very latest and greatest of devices, but very well covers when the devices did hit mainstream. And like so one thing I always am surprised with when I read like health statistics, health data, is that apparently people are really unhealthy. So like 23% of adults, 80% of school children like do not walk enough. Like that's surprising to me because like I normally think about school-going children as like running around all the time. Another kind of surprising thing is that apparently a third of adults in developed countries wear the devices, and that is like 2019, so it's even larger presumably by now. So like this thing is really popular, probably driven by the thing being really cheap. Like cheap fitness bands are like, you know, $10 something. Right. And like you can think about the data they conduct in two ways. So like on the one hand, it is about like personal behavioral change maybe. So like if presumably if somebody pokes you to go and walk, you maybe will walk. Another thing is like more of a medical angle. So say like hypothetically, maybe if your doctor has like a bunch of data which is continuously collected from you, then maybe it will help them do something. Though it's like really unclear at this point what exactly and how. And a more clear story, perhaps to me, is like something about population level stuff. So like indeed getting statistics about how people at large, like if they move or not, and what helps them move. Like I don't know, does weather matter? Does I don't know, air quality matter? So like maybe this can be like maybe if we publish a study using the variables data that if air quality is shit, then people don't go and walk, then maybe we can drive some urbanistics improvements with that, right? Okay, so that was like a narrative and background. Now we get to like the meta-analysis part. There's a bunch of technical details about how it was conducted, and another like surprising part to me was that apparently you develop like a search strategy for your sources, and you peer review by librarians the source strategy, and like I don't know, that's a part of life I'm entirely disconnected about this normally.
Maybe like it's a lot easier for CS papers where it's like mostly everything is published, but for medical papers it's probably less. There's more of them. They're not as online probably.
Yeah, great point. And I think it's also instructive to take a look about on how this search strategy looks like, it's also published. And here is the search strategy. So like it's a bunch of regular expressions, like activity monitor or activity monitors or activity monitoring, and like a bunch of company names, and then we just OR all of that stuff together, and we say we want a comparative study or validation study, and like English only, and Akura something, Reliab something. So yeah, that's what a peer-reviewed search strategy looks like. Then, like another.
I mean, kind of nice to have a second look and some comparison if these queries return like meaningful results, preferably all of the meaningful results, all of the relevant results.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's very nice they publish it because it's like it allows this meta-analysis to be reproducible. Another like unusual for me coming from a CS background thing is that they use some like proprietary systematic review software, which I assume like tries to extract stuff from papers automatically.
Yeah, I think like it's just lots of different things in research and medicine because they need a lot of it for like verifying drugs or confirming that everything is correct. So whereas in CS, like the standard is lower in order for the paper to be considered valid.
Well, and it's also like easier to test stuff in CS, right? Okay, so now we get like from technical tidbits to the stuff we actually care about, and what we care about is like two jargon terms for what we care about are validity and reliability. And we say validity for when we get a measurement from our device and we compare it to a reference. So like we have like our device is advertised to measure ECG, and we get like a medical grade ECG and we compare the two. That's how it is. And reliability is when we don't need a reference. It's when we, I don't know, like one thing we can do is we just like get 3 fitness bands on the same person, like on the same wrist, and compare the readings. And another thing we can do is like we walk the same route with the same device on 2 different days and see if it's more or less the same. Okay, so that's 3 metrics we care about. Criterion validity, so comparison for reference, inter-device reliability between same device, and inter-device between different devices. Oh, I mean, same model, but different instances of device. And going back to the technical bit for a bit, so to make a reliable meta-analysis, we only take papers which are reasonably open with their results, like which actually publish the numbers. And so we only take those which have correlation coefficients, group means, error as compared to reference. This is, I'm actually not sure what that is. And correlation coefficients for inter-device reliability. So that's the numbers we care about. So we take papers which publish them. Now, another thing I'd like to cover here is that, like, our task here is to take a bunch of free-form text and try to analyze it. So we try to extract the data into some structured format, and it's called, in our case, the consensus-based standards for the selection of health status management instruments validation subscale, or rather our fork of it. And I'd also like to take a look at how it looked like. So, like, we are evaluating a paper, right? We want to know if missing data is given.
By missing data?
I mean, so like...
the paper with the report.
Yeah, so like, say we have 100 people with a band, and like we exclude some of the measurements because the people wore the bands inside out, and that's missing data, and like that's just like one of the numbers that should be there. Like it's a research flow chart which goes like, first I take 100 participants, and then a few participants drop out, and then a few like data is bad. So that's like basically about this kind of flow chart. And like the next question is again about basically the same. So maybe we just dropped the samples with missing data, or maybe the data was missing like only for a few minutes for some reason. I don't know, like measurement artifact. Maybe we just interpolate it. So like this is just about what is done with the raw data before it is analyzed. Then sample size. Apparently 100 is adequate sample size, and less than 30 is a bad sample size. My statistics class didn't lie. So this one has like an interesting phrasing. Can the criterion be called a gold standard? And this is about that's about I think that's about the reference we're using. So like it's about if what we are comparing the data, like our reference device, is good. So like methodological flaws, all right. The numbers calculated, all right. That might be interesting to see that like they have particular measures they want to see. So like if yeah, so like we can see that they want to see a % difference between groups. Oh wait, they want to see a % difference between groups and percent error between the means of the groups, but they don't want to only see % error of the means of the groups. So I'm actually not sure how to interpret this very meaningfully. You have any ideas?
Okay, can you show the thing again? What's the question again?
Why do they care about this exactly? So like
maybe like different metrics have different properties.
So it's saying about
meta-analysis requirements.
yeah, it says about specifications that producer will give us, and
no, it's
real one.
So the meta-analysis authors, they evaluate a bunch of papers, and they have like a rubric by which they score if the paper is any good. And one of the questions in the rubric is, are these particular metrics calculated?
Are all these relative metrics, not absolute?
Well, this
So what's your
not exactly like RMSC is
Wait,
absolute.
Why is they asking this question?
Yeah. Okay, so like let's proceed. Maybe I'm saying that I'm not sure why they want % differences and these other metrics.
No, I think it's still % difference and equivalency, ideally.
Ah, right.
Because
then equivalency, without equivalency, but with % difference is kind of okay, and it's bad if they only give these alternatives and no % difference and no equivalence.
Yeah,
That's kind of.
In some cases, it's easy to trick, like show that this metric is nice, but actually, like the other metrics are bad, which is like maybe some metrics can be used to trick into thinking that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, like for correlations, they basically want us to give a model of why we're doing what we're doing. So like bad would be to just calculate the correlation and not interpret it.
Well, actually, I think with this and or, I think they missed the parentheses.
Yeah.
So it's % difference plus any of the
Mhm.
other metrics.
Yeah, but a little confusing this one.
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, that's basically what we covered. So let's skip that. Okay, so now we checked like how they evaluated every particular paper, and the final thing for this page is that those very nice people publish their data and their source code. Very nice. I think it's rare to see that.
Do they provide the statistics how many papers they analyzed?
Yes, that's actually
How many
that's exactly what I'm going to do now.
Thanks.
So like here's the flowchart. First, we like with this search query with regular expressions, we get 35,000 papers.
Basically 35,000.
Yeah. Then we deduplicate and get 20,000.
Again, these are all about like fitness.
That's those regular expressions. So like fitness something, like Fitbit something, reliability studies something. 35,000, deduplicate 20,000. Check out if the title and abstract is relevant. Throw 20,000 out. And like have 500 left. Look at the full text of the 500. Throw out most of them because they use not commercial like consumer devices, but research grade devices. Throw a few other ones for like bad study reasons mostly. And now we have 160 articles left.
They don't qualify conference papers. no, there was only one.
I think they didn't actually. Yeah, I think they said that they at first tried to include conference papers, but for some reason they threw them back.
Well, that's just kind of cultural thing. I mean, in the computer science, there's pretty much only conference papers, and in other fields, they don't really consider conference papers as a real thing. So that's reasonable. It's just this kind of funny thing. Cultural.
Yeah. So like what we're seeing here is that also like to highlight the final thing here. You can see that they have something they call narrative synthesis, and they have something called quantitative synthesis. And like narrative synthesis is when you have worse data, which doesn't allow you like proof like which makes wonky statistics. So you like eyeball something and like it looks more like this. And so like they have 10 papers which they disqualify for quantitative synthesis, but include in narrative synthesis. Okay, so now we went from 35,000 papers to 150 papers. That's still a lot of papers. That's like just a bunch of models as they evaluate.
So wait, like what the major ones?
I'll have it just in a second on the next page. Like another curious thing here is that a few of the papers they included were letters to the editor. I'm kind of confused. Like I didn't know you could, like I didn't know a letter to the editor is like a paper.
Well, maybe it was some kind of rebuttal or something.
Yeah, great point.
These guys did the wrong thing, so they're wrong. This is our analysis or reanalysis, and this is how it should be done.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe such things.
Makes sense. Right. So another two ways to slice the data. One is that's a histogram of how many studies are published measuring a particular measurement type. And I think 2019 is kind of like an artifact here because this meta-analysis was done in 2019, and so like it maybe didn't have the full breadth of data. So like maybe let's not look at 2019. And what is seen here is that apparently everyone cares about step count, and apparently like heart rate only appeared in consumer devices in 2016 or something. I think that's the main takeaway, really.
Though, Yeah, what devices for measuring energy expenditure? Not the pronunciation I know.
Yeah.
Like calorie.
I think that
The calories without measuring heart rate. That's the question. Like, what were the devices that were somehow measuring energy spent,
well,
but without measuring heart rate?
yeah, reasonable question, but I mean, like, I think we can guess what they did, right? Like, so like they just fit a model from accelerometer to calories and marketed the feature.
Okay.
And let's also take a look at what kind of devices we're looking at here. So, like, this really takes you back because like 10 years ago, Fitbit was a thing, and also Garmin was a thing.
Well, I think Garmin is still a thing.
I mean, I think at the time Garmin was like one of the few who did that kind of thing, and now they are only basically present in like the higher end of the market, and the lower end of the market is completely dominated by Chinese stuff.
Well, that's true. I mean, in this high end among what is athletes or amateur athletes, there is basically Garmin, Polar, Sunto, and basically that's it.
Yep.
Kind of semi-professional devices, and they just dominate market there.
Yeah.
And Garmin again, kind of maybe even wider than that with I don't know outdoor enthusiasts, which are again.
Okay, so that was like another pieces of background, kind of, and these plots are really the meat of the meta-analysis. So like we have this 150 papers, we extract data from them, and then we plot it. And here's what we see. We see that like when we count steps, then like the absolute most fitness bands measurements fall into the interval of like twice the actual number of steps or half the actual number of steps, except few outliers, which is like 4 per 150, so fine. Heart rate is like
wait. The graph looks heteroscedastic, right? So this variance kind of shrinks down with the number of steps and basically shrinks to 0, as I can tell.
You mean to the right?
It's number of participants.
It's number of participants, not steps,
okay. Not steps.
Well, like the graph is indeed not symmetric in that you have more mass below, which suggests they underestimate steps on average. If you look at heart rate, then the picture is kind of better because most stuff fits into the plus minus 10% interval. And
each dot on these graphs are a paper.
Yeah. And if you look at energy, it's like basically the same as steps again. So like plus minus twice the size, half the size. But you can see quite a bit more like variance, or maybe it's just the scale of the graph. Yeah, it's the scale of the graph because here we go to 600 and here we go to 250. So like this is for all consumer bands from 2000 to 2019. And what we do now is we slice it per manufacturer. Wait, where did my paper go? Okay. Okay, so this is the same, but per brand. And like, so this should be taken with a grain of salt because you remember that Fitbit was like half of our data total, but still Fitbit has like enormous variance, and like Apple, Polar, Samsung have like very little variance in steps.
But it seems like there's a lot less papers just on those.
Yeah.
That's one thing. Another thing, probably there are many more Fitbit devices and different devices. So it's kind of expected that they are all over the place, all over the spectrum. So
Mhm.
like huge variance in devices over the many years.
Yeah,
So
but we can
they
also slice.
change it all this
um,
stuff, and
We can also slice it by device model, and I'd say the trend kind of remains.
Fitbit Zip just
Yeah.
does not.
no, you see,
It's just an
kinda-
old company and
Yeah.
the old technologies.
Well, Zip is kind of all over the place. Most of the others, again, kind of tend to only underestimate. You see, so
Mhm.
there is again Fitbit Classic that tends to overestimate. Almost all of them underestimate, and a couple of them like
Mhm.
just give you random readings every
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
But well, like
So-
from eyeballing the graph, it seems like Apple, Garmin, and Polar do a good job, and others do less of a good job. Like this is Apple, this is Garmin, and this is Polar.
Where is Xiaomi?
I think
Okay, it
Wasn't
not existed.
I think
Isn't
not.
Fitbit Xiaomi? No.
Maybe they bought them. Not sure.
It didn't exist probably.
Yeah, so I think Xiaomi bands started in like about year 2020, maybe 2019.
Well,
So
again, that one thing that they existed. The other thing is that they were studied.
well,
So if they were-
I think being studied is like basically having a large market share in this case.
Exactly. Well, you can start and have very small market
Yeah.
share, so
Yeah.
you didn't get into the studies
Mhm.
at the time.
Yeah, okay, so, but well, like one way you could maybe interpret it is that Fitbit was exactly in the market which Xiaomi is in now, so like ultra low cost stuff. So maybe you can kind of expect that maybe they won't be very accurate as well, but well, this study doesn't give us concrete evidence of that. So heart rate, Fitbit good, everyone basically good, Garmin bad. Energy, basically, like everyone bad. Yeah, so like what we see here is that they are kind of consistent, as in like most of the mass is kind of like in the minus 50 plus 50. Yeah, well, so I think what's more interesting here will be so here we're looking at like reference measurements, right? So we're comparing these references. So and we see that it's not really good in that sense, but it will be nice to see about like inter-device validity, right? So like if it measures like a weird number, but at least the same number every time. Yeah, okay. I think I just want the next picture. Oh wait, where's the next picture? Did it get lost? Oh, okay, I see. So they say we won't give you a picture for reliability because we only have a few papers for reliability. And indeed, if we scroll back, we can see that we have like where we have them. We have like 150 papers for validity, so criterion, and like 15 for reliability. So yeah, they skipped on making us nice pictures for reliability, but they gave us some like text discussion. So let's take a look at that. The text discussion per device in the device reliability in the lab is good and is acceptable outside the lab. And exactly what this is yeah, it's plus minus 3% between different devices. So that's pretty good. in terms of steps. Heart rate is also good. The same measure, so plus minus 3% between devices. Impressive, I think. But calories don't work like that. So like calories are not stable across different devices. I think I might have some additional addenda useful here. Oh no, not that. Yeah, wait. So here we have. So like I'm trying to square this this sentence and this sentence. So this tells us that in the same device, reliability is very strong, and this tells us that estimates vary widely. Are they referring back to validity here? I think they do.
Yeah, that's probably about validity.
Yeah, so this is great. All right, this is good news for us. So like they might measure a weird number with calories, but at least they measure the same number. So it is like indeed empirically useful for at least like personal like N of 1 studies. And I think that's actually it for this paper. One thing this little tidbit here is about the references that we used in the various papers. And what have we here? We have basically medical grade accelerometers, whatever they are. We have ECG, which is straightforward. And I'm actually not sure what indirect calorimetry is. Anyone care to enlighten me?
It was
Something about energy.
Explain like I'm 5.
Yeah, direct calorimetry is when you breathe through this mask, right? Or in the room, and indirect is.
Yeah, okay, that's a great explanation. So, like, it's like measuring how much gas a car is using, but instead of looking at the gas tank, or instead of looking at how much you eat, you look at how much oxygen you breathe in and how much carbon dioxide you breathe out, because you need like oxygen to oxidize stuff. It apparently does something. Or like if you're looking at car's exhaust, like how much it gets out of the pipe, you can also see like estimate.
So still with the mask. So probably they were kind of running people on the treadmill with the breathing mask, oxygen mask.
Chest straps. This is I think what you posted to the chat. So
But you're losing energy every time, and so they excluding these basic energy consumptions of.
You mean so like?
It is additional energy
right.
consumption.
So I think you're asking about like basal metabolism, so like baseline metabolism, right?
Yes.
I'm actually not sure.
Maybe this is the reason why
there are two things. First, you can calculate this basal metabolism with a formula based on your weight, height, and age with very high accuracy. So you just stick the numbers there and you get it, your like basal metabolism per day, per 24 hours. That's one thing. So you don't need measures for that. Second one, this indirect calorimetry, they measure your energy expenditure while you're working out. So they put you on a treadmill, put this mask on, you run for like, I don't know, half an hour, maybe less.
Maybe less.
So again, this basal metabolism, like nothing compared to this active energy loss.
So the question was bands they measuring additional energy consumption because indirect calorimetry they also measuring basic.
No, it doesn't. Basically, it
If,
doesn't
if,
matter.
if,
Basically.
if you subtract, okay.
Yeah, so
Well,
whatever.
that doesn't matter.
like
Yes.
that's actually like a good question. That like indeed two types of metabolism, two types of energy expenditure. I am like confident that people using indirect calorimetry subtract basal because
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
that's medical stuff. I'm sure they know how to do that.
Yeah.
And
For
bands
sure.
like they also aim to calculate like active calories, so that's like at least what they are supposed to do.
Mhm.
And like yeah, and that's also the reason that they ask for your like age and stuff because
Yeah.
they can use it. Yeah, and pulse oximetry is straightforward.
24 hours. It's like 83 calories per hour. You know, kind of basal, and you spend 300. Well, that's maybe on. So okay, maybe they subtract. At least you can do that. Subtract
Yes,
basal.
they should, yes.
Mhm.
They should.
Okay, so like two other things I'd like to cover in the 10-minute segment we have left in our first puzzle discussion as per the timer. That's the second meta-analysis, which basically does the same thing, but on fewer articles, and it's more recent. It's 2022. So, like, let's just look at the pictures. Again, we have like 1,500 papers when we start. We exclude 1,000 of them. We have 400 left, and we have 60 left with which we use in qualitative synthesis because apparently the data is bad enough that we can't do a quantitative synthesis in the papers that we use. Okay. So I think that's the main outcome here. So with step counts, we see that Fitbit charge is that Fitbit charge is well kind of less than 25% of absolute percent error, kind of sort of fine. Apple Watch is good with heart. We knew that already, and energy is all over the place, which we knew as well. So like this just confirms what we saw. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the next thing I'd like to cover now is yeah. So I'd like to look at two things. One thing, no, not this screen. This screen. One thing I'd like to take a look at what the manufacturers actually market, and like if the things they market make sense as per what we just saw. And this will also inform like where we go in the next section. Okay, so this is Apple's marketing page, not for consumers, but for medical professionals, like empowering your patients. And what it says, that it can detect if the heart rate is too high or too low. This is true. Like this, it doesn't yet measure heart rate well. It can detect if the heart is weird. So like if the like this ECG wave is weird in a particular way, and the AFib way is the most common way of it being weird, and it like predicts stroke and stuff. And so we didn't actually see if it does that or not. Like, and we'll see it next in one of the next papers.
Sensitivity of 86%. They compare to kind of honest to God ECG.
Yeah, well, that's what they say. Sensitivity 87, specificity 99. So what it's saying is that we don't have very good true positives, but we have good false negatives, right? I think that's right.
Filter of negatives.
Mhm.
So the true negatives, yeah, great, and Well, I'd say that's
Yeah, so like
88, almost 90%. Yeah, pretty.
yeah, I think that's pretty good, especially given like you don't have to do anything. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, so and like they did indeed like tune the detector supposedly by what they want here, so they don't want to give you false positives. So they don't want you like to go screaming to the doctor like my heart is bad. Yeah, okay. Another thing we didn't cover yet, they advertise ECG. They also like have numbers about high specificity, high sensitivity, again in classifying the same AFib thing. AFib history, blah blah blah. A paper about AFib, blah blah blah. Next, they say that we calculate cardio fitness, which is the proportion of oxygen in the blood, the volume of oxygen in the blood, the maximum portion of oxygen in the blood when exercising, I think. No?
That's well, VO2 max is very specific measurement. Technically, what is VO2 max is very specific technical measurement. You're doing this stepwise test, so they put you on this treadmill, and they increase the speed gradually with some scale until you die out, basically pass out.
Yeah.
Ideally, that's the and so the maximum oxygen consumption that the mask registers is your VO2 max. This is kind of honest to God. This measurement this is how you measure VO2 max, like laboratory, really. So clearly, these devices cannot possibly measure that particular thing. So they estimate.
Yeah, thank you for that.
And that's not even like there is peak VO2 consumption. Again, how much you consume while exercising. So you're doing some exercises, maybe you run like 100 meters as fast as you can, and you have this peak consumption. Again, that's not VO2 max. That's different thing. So there are a lot of nuance to this measurement.
I mean, I think what I'm interested in here is like the technical question of how, like, what is the data flow and how they try to estimate that. And like what we've seen so far is only heart rate, which was accurate. And we probably need something else to measure that, right?
Well, again, I don't know how they estimate. They measure, again, oxygen in the blood, right?
Yeah, and oxygen in the blood is exactly one thing which we didn't cover yet.
Yeah.
So like that's something for the next section. Like this, they absolutely can do, right? They can detect if you fall because they have an accelerometer. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, that's it. The future of healthcare is in your hands. Okay, so like what we have here is that we have a few things which we trust it can do. Not sure yet. Not sure yet. Not sure yet. Not sure yet. Trust. Okay, so this is a pretty good situation to be in, I guess. And we'll get to evaluating the other claims in the next section. So let's take a break.
Короче говоря, да, наверное, какой-то обзорчик смотрел, типа я говорю, купил себе Apple, получается, часы. Я понял, что у меня что-то не то с сердцем. Я пошел к доктору и начал пить таблетки.
Вау.
Ну, то есть, если бы он не купил, он просто не пошел.
Да, он бы просто не узнал даже. Что
И жил бы спокойно.
Но недолго.
Долго еще знать.
Долго, да.
Ну да, мне кажется, что это классно, когда у нас появляются типа дешевые мониторы чего-то, что иначе может быть сложно заметить. Ну вот, как Саша сейчас сказал про пульс и велосипед.
Ну, Apple не совсем такие прям дешевые, но в целом да.
Я купил дешевый.
Ну, в целом, типа, модели SE это типа $150, ну, то есть not a lot. Okay.
Мало.
So, another thing, the last thing from my plan for another thing I wanted to cover directly related to those claims about studies on this page here, like sensitivity something, right? So here's an honest to God, as you like to say, Stanford page about an Apple Heart study. So what they do, they made a special application which you can install, which you could back at the time install, and if you qualify, so like if you're 22 and in the US and have the hardware, then they send you a reference device, an e-patch, which you like patch onto your body or onto your chest, and that's the reference. And the watch records its measurements, and they send it all over to Stanford. And as another like boon to you, they also get you a telehealth consultation with a cardiologist. So like just as an incentive to participate in the study. Yeah, so the study ran for 15 months. The interesting part maybe is that so I think what's impressive here is that this is like entirely like mail order stuff. So like just people at home, they somehow get to know that they can do this study. They into the mail they get a reference device, like they plug it on their chest. Like all data goes through their smartphone. So like a really convenient design for researchers. A great study in that sense. We can see the usual suspects in the who actually does the study list. So Apple, Stanford institution, the ethics committee, manufacturers, telehealth provider, manufacturer, bureaucrats, and the FDA. Yeah, and so I'm not 100% sure, but I think this is. Wait, no, that's not one of the studies they reference here. I think. Yeah, they reference only the ECG studies here. But yeah, so like this is the kind of great studies which are done with consumer grade devices.
What's the results of the study?
I actually didn't check because I didn't think it's useful to check like individual studies if you have like meta-analysis of 150 studies. Okay.
Well, maybe they were checking this like ECG and fibrillation detection or something, I believe, in this Stanford study.
Mm-hmm.
So more detailed. Usually they, in these studies that get meta-analyzed, they usually only measure this, just heart rate and a number compared to the reference.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree that we would have richer data if we looked at this particular study. I just decided to skip today.
Right.
So, like, onto something somewhat different. Not completely different, but somewhat different. So this paper I'd like to skim quickly, just to get a notion of like of other worlds we could live in, or maybe we'll live in like in 5-10 years time. So this is this is sensor something, and this is medical something, and this paper basically covers a bunch of different metrics and ideas which could be collected in a in a much broader sense than the current fitness bands work.
What year of this?
2018. Yeah. Okay. So first, they suggest stuff we want to know, and it's both the stuff which is like kind of standard today. So this is all. Well, I'm not sure if respiratory rate is collected normally. I think not.
Well, my team does.
Cool.
I know. At least it calculates something. But
Yeah,
no
yeah,
blood
can be
pressure.
calculated. Body temperature also like not mainstream yet, but will probably be in a few years. Like nothing special there, except that we can only measure like extremities temperature, not core temperature. Then I'm actually not sure. Like this is some. Yeah, no idea about this medical sounding words. And then they suggest 3 other important vital signs which should be considered as part of routine patient assessment, which is pain, level of consciousness, and urine output. So maybe this suggests what smartwatches will do to us in like 5 years when we have AGI.
You'll kind of incur the same level of pain in everyone, so you would know exactly.
Wait, why can't we measure healing output by placing a medical device into our toilet bowls, for example?
Yeah, they're doing that.
Yeah, I meant in an everyday fashion, in an everyday unobtrusive fashion in a consumer device. So like, not clear where to go from current smartwatches to urine output measurement.
Yeah.
But would be useful according to those authors, to these authors. Also, glucose. Glucose is kind of weird because everyone wants it and no one has it. Per my understanding, like the current state of art which you can actually buy is, this like you go and get a surgery and you get like an implant, but with like a removable part.
Yeah.
And the internal part is like a sensor, and the external part is like a transmitter and the battery, and this works.
Mm-hmm.
But non-invasive stuff, I think, doesn't work.
Well, what about, maybe I'm mistaking something, but those, I think it was used with some smartwatches with 2 electrodes, and while the electricity.
Yeah.
I think it is something like ionophoresis something. So I think like while reviewing the literature, I did find some consumer device which use the technology, but it was withdrawn from the market because they burned the skin with the electrodes. Yeah.
Yeah, another thing, they were imprecise, again, very imprecise, especially when you have low glucose level, kind of it's hard to extract from low levels and hard to detect them. And again, very low glucose level is one of the kind of key conditions when you want this thing to work. When you want this thing to notify you, but it doesn't work in this condition. So very kind of pretty pointless.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Another like tidbit of information we can see from here is that apparently the current, so like just some context, like I'm no medical professional at all, and so like I'm constantly learning stuff when I'm reading this subject. And so apparently the current standard of care for people who are at risk of heart stuff is to have them wear a Holter device each year for 24 hours. the whole device is a portable ECG basically. And like if you are comparing to that, then like absolutely anything at all which they wear daily is like a great improvement. Yeah, and this is kind of the part where we can go from the nice highlighted part into the text of the paper, and so they talk about stuff like a holter has to use electrodes, and there is a bunch of innovation in electrodes. Like people try to embed electrodes into a fabric, like directly into a shirt. They want dry electrodes which work without the conductance gel. Dry, flexible, and stretchable sensors attached to the skin. And like so there are researchers working on electrodes which will be embedded in normal fabric and which will be resistant to stretching, bending, twisting, and be washable. So that's kind of interesting.
Holy grail of wearables.
Now, another like interesting tidbit is that you can measure heart rate with inertial centers or scales, and this is called a ballistocardiogram. So like, I suppose.
Well, yeah. Again, on these smart scales, yeah, if they very sensitive, they can detect this kind of movement of your center of mass with your heartbeat. Technically, they can. I don't know how precise it is. Maybe not.
Right.
On the other hand, they have electrodes also, so maybe changing the conductance.
So another like bunch of stuff happening is that so a bunch of work trying to estimate blood pressure from like without the cuff, and apparently one work is to so what's happening here is that photoplethysmography are those green LEDs which your band shines on you, and photoplethysmography tries to see the pulse wave. So like the heart beats, and then you get the movement here in the artery. And what they're doing here is they look at ECG, so the electrical signal, how your heart beats directly, and the delayed signal here. And apparently they get pressure from that somehow. I didn't read the source, so I don't know how.
I'm not sure about the difference there is. So the first they say that both measure on the chest. So they get this chest strap
yes.
with both ECG and PPG,
and PPG.
There, and somehow that works too.
Oh, I suppose it's still delayed because one is like physical movement and the other is electrical signal.
Velocity is correlated with pressure by physics, yes?
Yeah, but it's complicated for this stretchable.
Yes.
But yes, it like gives some sort of intuition how that could work. Yeah, nice point. What else see we here? Respiration rate. The like standard way to compute respiration rate is to so I think this says that we want to look at like gas inhaled and exhaled, and that will reflect chest volume variation. makes sense. Like another tidbit of data we can see here is if we look at like how much the thorax expands and contracts, then that allows us to judge how much muscles exert effort, which in turn gives us different physiological states. And apparently, like there's a bunch of work on measuring people who are professionals in sport, like doing that sort of thing for them. And in our case, like I don't know, I think we can just do this paragraph and maybe go somewhere else, because it's just like a huge bunch of stuff going on here. But so like technique 1, we take piezo sensors which give us current at point, and we plug them on top of basically the chest. But the twist here is that we are using again a fabric sensor. So like we're using a voltage sensitive shirt, and we get respiratory rate from there, or we get abdominal volume changes from there. That's technique 1. Technique 2 is to look at okay, so I think what this does is, so we have like a metal loop around our chest, and when we breathe, the loop like expands because the chest expands. So like this method actually is very straightforward. Yeah, and like then there is just I know, like estimate from ECG, estimate from pulse oximetry. Estimate from pulse oximetry is maybe interesting. So like pulse oximetry gives us the proportion of oxygen in the blood, or maybe proportion of CO2 in the blood, and so like we expect it to be like wave-like, and we try to estimate the respiratory rate from there. That's sensible. Yeah, I wanted to skip this paper, but it goes to SPO2, which we kind of approached already. So have you anything interesting here? So like the physical sense is that hemoglobin spectrum changes when bound with oxygen. And apparently, okay, that's interesting. So like on one hand, they assert that this is useful for normal people. I'm not sure how they support it here. But also it's interesting that like they care about oxygenation because depending on like if some parts of the body have bad oxygen delivery, then you can black out. So supposedly for research purposes, they like have people with pulse oximeters like on different parts of the body and in different gravity. And again, there is work to embed this into textiles. So like one possible cyberpunk trend, which is underlooked in the mainstream literature, is like smart textiles. Okay, that was that. Yeah, that was that paper, 2 authors. Now the next paper is okay. So the previous paper gave us like a a very wide view about things researchers do with like the kinds of metrics they want to try to measure, which we don't measure yet, and the like wide array of methods they try to use to do that. And what this paper does, it's an IEEE Explore paper, I think. It is a deep review about those green LEDs for cardiovascular monitoring. And like, I'd just like to start with like a fun part. Apparently, there's a British Heart Foundation. Okay. So, like, let me show you another picture. That's the picture. So this mesh is some sort like of like National Library of Medicine, like a topical typing index or something. And apparently, photoplethysmography was introduced in like 93, 92. Oh wait, actually not, like 66. And now going back to our paper. So I think that the way those devices went, in either 90s or 2000s, they entered into like clinical practice. Oh yeah, there's actually a whole section on that. Stuff like enabling checking that people actually have oxygen to breathe when they're anesthetized, which was never done before in the 80s. And then again, checking that infants have the right amount of oxygen they're given, because if you give them too much oxygen, then you get oxygen toxicity, and that impacts the neural system, like blindness. Yeah, and now pulse oximeters are like the default, I think, in wards. So like you get yeah, like it's just the default to get both heart rate and oxygen these days. Just, I don't know, like what everyone does all the time. And then so like
they basically talk about these oximeters and pulse heart rate monitors that kind of you stick on your finger.
Mhm.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
the hospital they
yeah.
get you this thing on the finger and it monitors.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Yeah, sorry for not mentioning that. So like I think what we have here is that in the 80s it's introduced like into clinical practice for like hardcore stuff like surgery, anesthesia, and infant care. In like I think in 2015 or something, we begin to see this in consumer devices, maybe 2010 something, and then like we get a whole bunch of this stuff during the COVID pandemic. Like I first saw like I first saw my like clip-on pulse oximeter during the COVID pandemic. Okay, so now let's try to see how this worked, like in terms of physics. So is this a reflective method, or like, well, rather it's like it's spectrometry method, and so we either just like put a photosensor and see reflected light, or we also put like a diode which illuminates the surface, and then we get like reflection from that. I don't know. This is like actually transmission through, so I think we could maybe do this like with a finger. Yeah, we could actually shine the light through the finger and see what comes out the other side. And this maybe is what the rings do. Right. Here are some pictures. So here is how it looks like in the typical setting of like a tablet on the a band on the hand. So like actually, like from this picture, you can see that the signal has a ways to go before it actually sees the artery, because the artery is on the other side. And the picture is much better when we look at fingers. So like in the finger, we can directly see the artery. And
that's why these fitness triggers, like watches or something, don't measure artery. they look at the capillaries in the skin.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The bands look at the capillaries. And
why everyone is using green color for photoplasmogram?
Because it gets absorbed by red blood.
Okay.
So
it's transparent for blood. Or what?
No, it gets absorbed.
Like vice versa. It's opaque for blood.
So when you have kind of a lot of blood there in the capillaries, you have very little reflected green light.
Yeah, so actually the researchers say that you can use like different spectra, and actually like expensive medical devices, state-of-the-art ones, apparently use a bunch of spectra to synthesize the overall signal. My understanding is that green light is used for it penetrates less, and this is somehow useful for when we do like near measurements. And if you want to do like measurements from a distance, then it's more useful to use like red lights, apparently. Yeah, and so like what we expect to see is we expect to see that there are some static tissues which don't do much. Then there is venous blood which oscillates very slowly, and the arterial blood gives us the heart pulses. So that's what we want to filter out. And here is how this signal might actually look. So we look at the data at rest and with moderate activity and with high activity. And what we see in here is that if we take a Fourier of that, then we get a good match with the first two components at rest. With exertion, with activity, this kind of falls out the window. But note that this is like one particular data set. So this is not a meta-analysis. This is one particular data set.
Judging from the picture, it seems that it's exactly least precise when you're walking. Like at rest, it's spot on. When you're running, it's fairly close, very close. When you're walking, it's kind of
well, yeah,
somewhere around, but not very precise.
Right. Yeah, so and in this case, it's actually like not clear what causes that. So it might very well be that it's just the sensor being like shuffled around. And there is again work to correct for this. So like researchers try to to take accelerometer data and like deduct it from the signal. Okay. Another like interesting tidbit here is that apparently like the doctors do not know how these pulse waves work exactly, which is kind of weird. Now, like one thing this review paper complains about is that everyone like measures PPG, like gets PPG signal in a bespoke way. So this is like very application specific. So like depending on sensor placement, sensor type, data filtering, you get like entirely different kinds of data. And so like researchers normally don't even try to standardize. And the guys here suggest like maybe you should standardize and like maybe you should do calibration and then do like decibels compared to the full scale and then normalize by baseline. And like this is all nice suggestions, but like do know that the state of the field in 2022 is that no one normalizes, and like this is unitless. Therefore, like
I know if you somehow want to calibrate it, then you need what, like chest strap, and you already have chest strap. Why would you kind of look at the wrist readings?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, so like
when I had and was wearing chest strap for exercises, I didn't even had these smart watches and didn't even want one because like why would I take that if I already have a chest strap?
Yeah, so like it depends on what you want to do, and if you want to like evaluate the sensor, then maybe you do want to calibrate. And one way they suggest of calibrating like calibrating without references is to just look at the reading without the finger inserted. So like full transparency, right?
Yeah.
So like maybe do full transparencies and full opaqueness, and that gives you the scale, and at least standardizes that. Okay, so like that was one idea. Another idea, like another interesting part, is that they suggest a bunch of other places to put the sensors in. So like into the ear with earbuds, because like earbuds are in the ear anyway, so why not? Chest bands are clear. Into smart glasses, because again, like they are on the face, they have those capillaries, why not? And maybe that will actually be even better, because like earbuds are stuck there and don't like shuffle around.
At least, yeah, I remember I had this this steady, like bicycle thing, imitating bicycle, you know?
Yeah.
Static
Okay.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it had this heart rate monitor that was clipped to the ear. To the ear, yeah, it was measuring heart rate through that thing. I don't know, worked pretty good to my taste. So that's a thing for kind of quite some time.
Yeah. Well, I think that this sensor probably worked on some like electrical methods. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it wasn't optical. Oh, I mean, you could see if it was optical.
I didn't look.
Okay.
Well, on the other hand, yeah, doesn't seem it was.
Yes, so like I think those cycling gear is normally just about like pulse signal, so like heart contractions, and like PPG is kind of interesting because it is somewhat more. So like it is like it's the like maybe it's the diameter of the artery at the site or something, and it's a smoother signal. So like they try to extract a bunch of stuff from that, like pressure, as you saw. Right. And so like some considerations about sensor design. So what you care about is like how the LEDs and the diodes are positioned relative to each other, because like if they're close, then we get better signal. But if the diode directly lights up, if the LED directly lights up our diode, then we don't get a signal. So like we have to put an optical barrier, and so like what apparently is mainstream at the moment is to like have one diode and a bunch of LEDs around it, and like to light them up sequentially to get and like average readings or something. Right. Or using decomposition to extract significant components, of course. Right. And then we also use, as I said, accelerometer or gyroscope to try to remove movement artifacts because the sensor shuffles. Yeah, and this is actually this section exactly about the wavelengths, the question asked. So like we normally use green, red, infrared. We supposedly we want green in the band because the band isn't going to see the artery anyway because it's on the other side. So we like don't want to introduce additional artifacts. We want to like be close by. Okay, so like here is a section on digital signal processing. I'm basically going to skip it because it's hardcore. Like I'll just mention a few tidbits. Like one tidbit is that they mention a bunch of different empiric cutoffs to be used for different sorts of signal. So like PPG is some weird unitless ground truth. And what we want to do, we want to get heart rate, we want to get a pulse, we want to get interbit interval, we want to get pressure, so a bunch of stuff. And we just it's convenient to apply different low and high pass filters to extract like different stuff. And so to get like a precise wave shape, we want a high quality signal, and so cutoff less. And if we only want the heart rate, then we need a low quality signal, so we are fine. And here's a picture. So blue is raw signal, and then we then do a low pass filter, and we get like a more useful to process signal. Then do a high pass signal, and again like we remove useless artifacts. And we can also do anomaly detection. So like here we have normal signal, and here is something weird, probably the sensor again being shuffled around, and so we want to drop this this sort of thing. Okay. Yeah, skipping, speaking.
What is this chart on the right?
This one? Yeah, so let's see. I'm actually not sure.
Phase space, symmetric,
Something like that.
symmetric projection, attractor reconstruction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the parts I wanted to skip. I mean, yes, they do have a section about analysis in phase space, and that was exactly it. Like, I don't know how this kind of analysis works to comment. But
No, it's just interesting chart.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So like, what's interesting here is that like you kind of start from I don't know oh, does my smartwatch calculate good numbers? And like it's in a very short span of time, you get into like hardcore signal processing sort of thing and like phase space analysis. Okay, I think we can also, well, like maybe look at this one. So, like what we do.
Finally, we have neural networks here.
Yeah, so like we pre-signal process PPG, and like then we like try to do standard deep learning stuff. So we try to extract features and then classify people if they're young or elderly with PPG. We try to measure medical parameters or estimate medical parameters we care about. Okay. Apparently, like our feature engineers decided that a spectrogram is useful to give to the neural network in particular. And again, like from this like weird raw signal, we try to get high-level diagnoses like normal or high blood pressure and estimate the numbers. So like that's the kind of work done.
And why is they not refiltered spectrogram somehow?
I'm sorry?
Spectrogram is not refiltered somehow. So in the better way to consume by neural dose.
Maybe it is, but it's just not shown on the diagram.
Yeah, I mean
Just
like
an illustration.
Oh, okay. Maybe.
yeah, I mean like that's not the part. So like on this diagram, the part on the right is what we are like showing to the consumer, and this is just like details on implementation.
Yeah. It's just illustration probably.
Okay. Yeah, this is like also a bunch of details, but maybe this one is interesting. So this was like signal processing and like clinical stuff, sections 3 and 4. Oh wait, that was section 3, signal processing. And I'd like to give some space here to clinical applications because it's again about the real world impact.
Atrial fibrillation again.
Yeah, atrial fibrillation again. So here we see some stats about why it's interesting. So one of the most common arrhythmias, 3% of people over 35, 30% of strokes. So yeah, kind of makes sense to focus on it. And here they basically say that like the technology seems to work. Another application is sleep apnea. And sleep apnea is like another thing which goes undiagnosed because like the standard way to measure sleep apnea is to sleep in the lab for a night, like with a bunch of sensors around you. And most people, for some reason, don't do that, and it's not even included into like the every 5-yearly like standard, like inventory of health or something. Yeah, so like this is often untreated, and it's bad because like you don't breathe for extended periods of time. And yeah, like a bunch of research, to identify it. Most obviously by looking at oxygen concentration in the blood, because if you don't breathe, it tends to decrease. So this section is kind of weird. A section about infectious diseases. I think that that's what they basically say here. They say two things. Like first, COVID demonstrated that pneumonia bad, and you can measure pneumonia by looking again at like blood oxygenation. So like that's like a clear-cut story. That's great. Okay. And the next thing they say here is basically, I think, like we have no idea, but big data may be something other infectious diseases. So, I mean,
Would be nice, but
Yeah.
totally unclear.
Another like
Privacy.
yeah, but well, actually, like this here is an absolutely great topic to do differential privacy research about. So we talked about differential privacy some time ago, and like this is what you apply differential privacy for, to get a bunch of anonymized data from like a large population. Another medical factoid, apparently adults, like one third of adults suffer from sleep disturbance. I don't know what sleep disturbance is. They don't define it, but sounds bad. And that's weird. And this is kind of, again, the same story as like what Sasha talked about. So like something you don't know, like the pulse, and something you can get a number about. Right. And the way you get heart rate is again like and the way you get sleep data is let's see, heart rate, pulse rate variability, respiratory rate, shape of pulse wave, and how much you move around. I didn't read the source, but yeah, if you checked out the PopSci links I linked in the chat, they basically state that sleep measurement is reasonably good, and well, like if you measure sleep disturbance, so like I have no idea about the medical details really, but just speculating. So if sleep disturbance is like literally having disturbed sleep as an interrupts in your sleep, I would expect people to normally move around when their sleep is interrupted, like trying to find a better position, you know. And this is absolutely something we can just get from an accelerometer. So I kind of trust it, basically.
People were doing that before wearables, before this stuff. Just with an Android app, you can put it under your pillow, and it measures the amount you move around during the night with accelerometer, and classifies that again in the sleep phases, and kind of gives you this estimate how well you slept, how much kind of disturbed deep sleep you had through the night, stuff like that.
Right.
I don't know how precise that was.
Yeah, but like if
I'm pretty sure with wearables it's better, much better, especially considering they're calculating your heart rate and and all that stuff.
Yeah, but I think like it's important to, or like it's useful to think that it seems like we have a really low bar here. So like you just take a look at if the person is moving around much or not, and you get like something which I suspect tracks like sleep disturbance pretty well. Okay, so
again, probably that's not that big of a deal for like us office, clerks, something, people with very
with confidence,
practical and not very stressful job. Yeah, but for people who does these shifts, going without sleep for like maybe 4 hours or something, or have these shifts when they have a night shift and then they sleep during the day, maybe, and probably not very well. For people like that, maybe that's much more important, so they really calculate how much hours of sleep they got through the week, say at what time. These statistics might be much more relevant and important for this kind of people.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. So it's now time for another break, another 45-minute period passed. What we're going to do next is we're going to finish this paper, so like take a look at a few remaining clinical applications, and then I just want to what is this one? And then I want to cover a topic of getting PPG data from normal conventional cameras. So like this kind of camera. Okay. Okay, so like the last section and a half of this paper, and then another paper about about PPG with normal conventional cameras. I'll try to make it quick. Right. So like direction E, assessing mental stress. Apparently, the medical standard for assessment of stress is to do swabs to check for cortisol. Cortisol is a hormone of stress, and like you could detect it in saliva. And that's weird, and no one does it. So the current standard in it, so like if your smartwatch reports you stress, it works based on pulse rate variability. So like if your heart beats regularly, or like if the interval between the beats changes. I'm not sure how reliable that metric is, but like that's how it goes these days. Next, from PPG, we try to derive age of arteries on features of the second derivative. Like, don't ask me how. And like general organ failure. I guess this is like indirect. So again, like if you get SpO2 from PPG and SpO2 is bad, then that indicates that something else is bad. And also like some cardiovascular specific stuff, like if arteries are stiff, that's bad, and we again try to get this from PPG. And this index predicts mortality from heart issues. So that's what I want to know. Response to exercise, or rather like how, so like you have a heart rate, your heart rate elevates in response to exercise and it recovers to baseline. And you want to know how quickly it recovers, because if it recovers in a bad way, then that predicts mortality again. I suppose if it doesn't recover for long. Also, I forgot to set a timer, so let me set a timer. 14, 15. I'll try to make it quicker than that, actually, but okay. Yeah, so like maybe another thing to highlight is that apparently there is some kind of complication in pregnancies, 3-5% of pregnancies. You can see it just from high blood pressure. It's important to detect early, and like, again, a free win for us. Research directions are basically, I think it's basically like do better signal processing. So like we have this raw data, we want to extract ever better estimates of things we actually care about. And like basically just like signal processing stuff here. That's one thing. And another thing, I think they want to have large-scale data of actual deployments. And apparently in 2022 they didn't have that. So this would be something like those Stanford studies we looked at. Okay. Another direction is to try to get medical professionals to use this data, because these days you normally like just have your smartwatch for yourself. I think that there is some progress in the US with that. Like you can actually have an application for your clinic, and it gets data like from Apple House or Google House. Like you can choose to give them this. Okay, and like another thing of notice in this paper is this bank of data sets of PPG signals, and like there's a bunch, and a few I'd like to highlight. We have recordings from children and adults during surgery and anesthesia. We have recordings before, during, after running, at rest, and during cognitive tasks. So like not physical, but cognitive tasks too. Intensive physical exercise, driving a car, a long scale recording of daily living, during a protocol to evoke emotions, and this pulse wave database, I'm not sure how it works, but they have a bunch of simulations. So maybe they're simulating them backwards from like what they expect to have in standard adults. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. And also recordings of dogs and cats. All right. The last point with this paper is that so note that consumer devices, like I think there is like no way to see the raw PPG signal with them normally. And so unclear how to do research on that. I guess the question here is if manufacturers are willing to give the raw signals to someone, to researchers. Okay. So this paper was how photoplethysmography works on wearable devices. And now I very briefly want to review a paper by, I think, these guys, yeah, Kuran et al. So, like, the way to think about this is as follows. So, we have a method which looks at capillaries and gets a bunch of data like heart rate, pressure, stuff. And like, if you're looking at capillaries, then we have a whole bunch of capillaries to look at. And like, why don't we just use the camera? And indeed, like, you can use the camera, and I think either this paper or the other has a bunch of fun pictures. Yeah, so this is how they envision it. You know, big brother looking at your heart rate. Or like your car looking at your heart rate, or like, you know, your smartphone looking at your heart rate. Yeah, so like, I don't really want to go in detail, so just want to tell you that there's a bunch of like current research about using standard cameras like your laptop webcam, like your smartphone cam, to get PPG data and get all this like variety of stuff which we just discussed PPG data entails. So that's one thing. And another thing, going back to an earlier paper, I think they also had a fun picture somewhere. Oh yeah, so in 2018, that's how researchers thought about like this would play out. So like, you have a temperature monitor, you have like somewhere in probably like in close to the core, and you have like an ECG monitor on the chest, and like you have something which like tracks your steps like actually close to your feet, and like they all communicate via Zigbee, and you have like a small like personal network on your body. And so like it didn't pan out this way yet, and like everyone just uses one device on them normally. I wonder if it will go this way with smart fabrics, like if the T-shirt does that, like maybe. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to show. One thing is PPG done remotely, and another like this vision from 2018 about how this would go, which didn't pan out this way yet. So this is it. Thank you. Any questions about
Yes,
something?
a question about camera. And do you know that there are applications you can install on your phone? So you put in your finger with lightning and with the camera simultaneously, and this application will give you a rate at some point.
Yeah, it's great you reminded me, because I actually have like pictures. So like
This is a finger.
no, that's not a finger. That's a frog.
Ah, wow.
So this is yes. So this is a PPG frog.
Wow. Cool.
And this is a hand.
Wow. This is cool.
What is highlighted exactly?
New blood.
Ah, can we see how man or woman?
Something interesting. Can we see something more interesting?
Well, actually, while researching this topic, I found something which is called clitoral photoplatismographs, which are apparently used to, which are proposed to be used to check if a person with a vagina is a sex offender, because it is supposed to be a reliable measure of like sexual excitation in ways which previous technology didn't cover.
Nice. This is interesting topic. We can deep dive next time.
Yeah, so like PPG is pretty fun, and this is a nice thing about PPG. I remember I wanted to cover the topic of DIY stuff. So like what we can actually do like at home with this in this sort of field. So one thing to mention here is what's the word? Pine watch, I think. No, not this pine watch. Pine like pine seal, but watch. Yeah, wearable pine time. Yeah. Okay, so what we have here is a smartwatch you can buy for $30, and it's completely open source, and it has what has it? It has a microcontroller with a very capable CPU. So I expect this CPU is way more capable than the ones in Mi Bands. And it has an accelerometer and the PPG heart sensor. And so like you can get raw data here and pre-process it however you like. And so like there is a bunch of open source work about making this work. And you can actually do stuff so like remember how I discussed about this camera we're using, that we like fit the response curve to a professional video camera, you can try doing the same thing here with a commercial band, for example. So yeah, like this is something you should look into if you want to do DIY in this field.
But sorry, I think it's different because on the commercial device you have like there's different signals, different measurements. You should check them, not the raw data, right? Because there are like different sensors in this device.
Yeah. I mean, you can use so like you have raw data here, and you have and you want from this raw data to compute the metrics you actually care about, like steps and heart rate, and you have reference from the commercial device, and you want to feed your processing to
commercial app, I guess, not device.
a device, exactly.
Or
If you want to develop this thing for you, you better have some commercial grade professional device. Again,
well,
like a
maybe
chest strap.
maybe not
So-
professional, like maybe like
Well,
as we thought, consumer devices are somewhat good, like they are clearly better than like raw data. I mean, so you can get you can start fitting your model with from this data to a commercial device.
so this device,
Mhm.
like with open APIs that you can.
And like this might actually be useful. So like if I were a researcher who wanted to like get a somewhat at scale deployment, like hundreds of devices, I maybe would use this too, because this will give you raw data. Something to say?
When you say we cannot get raw PPG data from consumer devices,
Mhm.
do you mean we cannot have this wave form, or we cannot have pulse heart rate measurements?
Yeah, I meant the former. So like they do some black box data processing on PPG data and only give us like high level results like heart rate variability and stuff, but they don't give us the raw PPG wave. Because like raw PPG wave, it's even unclear how to interpret it. Like PPG wave is not exactly the pulse wave. It's not exactly the like. So like we could we can look at like heart oscillations, and like this would be ECG. We can look at blood movements, and that would be pulse wave. And PPG is like neither of those. It's like something which we could try to estimate those from. And so consumer devices normally don't give you this in the raw.
But if we want pulse, if we want heart rate,
Mhm.
we can get it from consumer
Yeah, of course. Like, yeah, sure. I mean, like, if you just open the marketing page of a consumer like band, then it will tell you like that it can measure heart rate, that it can measure steps, calories, stress, and like you can get that. You can't get like the base data behind that.
One small thing I would like to add here. I think there is an app on the Google Play Store for polar chest straps
Mhm.
that using which we can get raw data from the chest strap, raw
Mhm.
data of ECG activity.
Mhm.
Maybe that would be interesting for someone here.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for that.
So, and this data you also can get from Apple developer, for example. And if you have Apple Watch and if you Apple developer, maybe you have some API that.
Mhm. Yeah, great question. I don't know.
Yeah, because maybe they have a high-level API and you can't get any information.
Yeah.
Not in a full way. Otherwise, you can create the competitor for their health
Maybe yes. Maybe you can train it.
Yeah. So like one reason they don't share the raw data is exactly because they don't want you to fit your own like model, because these algorithms are proprietary. And actually, like you might have heard that Apple is like if I open apple.com/watch, then I think we'll see some information about a current lawsuit. Let's see, like Ultra 2.
I'm talking about this one with
by
this.
Sensor thing.
Okay, no, they don't get information of the lawsuit on this page exactly, but oh, because they just beat it, I see. So like there was a lawsuit against them that they copied someone's proprietary technology to measure blood oxygenation from PPG data, and they just beat it. So like yeah, it's fine now. Yeah, okay, so like going back to what you can do if you want to DIY the same, you can do the pint time, and that would be great. You can like try to explore some developer access maybe, and you can also bootstrap off research on camera PPG, because like there are absolutely like open access papers is code on GitHub when you can like run an app and give it a camera stream, and it try to give you PPG, and like this is absolutely something you can do.
Yeah, but how accurate is gonna be when, like, if I use my app and my phone with the flash and the camera just to try to get this PPG? How accurate is it compared to the watch or the ring?
Well, like great question. I didn't actually read that in detail, so let me just Zoom doesn't work. Font size bigger. So like there is, I think there are two good review articles on that. This one, camera-based remote something from yeah. So this one with funny pictures. So like Quran et al. Camera-based remote, like a recent review 2022, and there is also Molinaro, also recent. Also 2022. So I advise you to check these papers. They should be good. But also consider that these papers are actually about a more different problem. They aren't about like using a finger on the camera. They are about like this camera being a distance from me getting PPG data. And like from my scheming, I think they get good results, or promising results at least.
But just from the usual points on your skin, now need a special.
So like just from like the face pic. Okay, so is there no more questions? I think you can stop now. Thanks again.